Okay, so this is number 6 from section 4.8, and again, we're working on the assumption that we have a quadratic, and we're working on the assumption that that quadratic is going to equal 0. And if it does, I can use the quadratic formula. So, if you look at number 6, you'll notice that I don't have a 0 on one side or the other. And it doesn't matter which side of the equation you put 0 on. It doesn't matter. We just need a 0. So the easiest thing to do is add 5. And remember, you can only add 5 with other 5s. That's it. You can't add 5 to x and you can't, or b, and you can't add 5 to b squared. So it's just 5. So this gives me 0 equals 10b squared minus 10b plus 5. And here's A, here's B, here's C. Fill them in where they belong in the quadratic formula. So you get the opposite of B plus or minus the square root of. B squared, always use parentheses when you do this, because if you don't, when you type it into your calculator, you will get an incorrect answer every time. Okay, so always use parentheses when you're squaring B. Minus 4 times A times C. And then all over 2 times A. Okay? So this is a big guy. And then start simplifying stuff down. So 10 plus or minus the square root of, and then this is 100 minus 4 times 10 is 40 times 5, 200 over 20. Alright, so we've got a nice pretty quadratic formula here. It's shaping up wonderful. This is going to be 10 plus or minus the square root of negative 100. And so this is where, like the question we had a second ago, we've got a radical with a negative underneath. And so with that radical with the negative underneath, we handle that by pulling out an I and making the number under the radical positive. And then you should be able to recognize that you have a square root of 100, which is 10. If you don't, just do your factor tree. And if you do your factor tree of 100, you're going to get 10 times 10, which is 5 and 2, and 5 and 2. So you've got a couple of 5s, and you've got a couple of 2s. And so when you pull them out, you end up with 10. So this gets us 10 plus 10i over, oh, by the way, this is still 20 down here. I got all excited and left the 0 off. And so now, what number's in each piece? What number's in each piece? The number 10 is in each piece, so I can divide a 10 out, and that gets me 1 plus or minus I over 2. And this would be the exact same thing. These are identical. There's no difference. And you can stop in either spot. Either spot is correct. So you don't need to keep going. Alright, quadratic formula. X equals opposite of B plus or minus square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. Okay? And this will only work if you have an equation in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So please note, on this problem, the 6a is on the wrong side of the equation. So what we're going to do is subtract this guy from both sides. And you can only put a's with a's, and you can only put a squareds with a squareds, and you can only put numbers with numbers. So there's nothing else for 6a to go to. This gives me 10a squared minus 6a plus 2 equals 0. Now I'm ready to go into my quadratic formula. And we've got three different guys here. We've got a, b, and c. So a is going to be 10, b is going to be negative 6, and c is going to be 2. Let me make this a little bit cleaner. Jeez, it did it again. Equals negative 6. There we go. Pretty. Okay, so substitute a, b, and c into the corresponding a, b, and c places. So x equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared. Now, listen to me. Anytime you do b squared, please put it into parentheses. Because when you punch it into your calculator, if you don't put it into parentheses, you'll make a mistake. So, negative 6 squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. And in this case, that's going to be 2 times 10. Okay? Now do your math. So I'm going to have negative 6 plus or minus the square root of. And negative 6 squared is 36. And then 4 times 10 times 2 is 80. Okay? So far, so good, right? And all that's over 20. Okay. So go one more step further, and we're going to go with 6 plus or minus the square root of negative 44 over 20. And this is x equals all the way down. Well, the square root of a negative number is going to be I. So my next step would be 6 plus or minus I square roots of 44 over 20. And then factor tree 44. So that would be 4 and 11, and then 2 and 2. So couples go out, singles stay in. So I've got a pair of 2's. So I've got 6 plus or minus 2i square roots of 11 over 20. This is what x equals. And then there's a 2 in every single piece. There's a 2 in the 6, there's a 2 in the 2, and there's a 2 in the 20. So I can take a 2 out of all of those, and I get x equals 3 plus or minus I square roots of 11 over 10. And then this would be where our final answer goes. Okay?